Hello, good evening or good day to everybody out there. This is the Mancunian Way. I'm your host, Pat, and we're back for episode number 4 of Blues Down Under. Alan's in the building. How are you, mate?
All right, Pat, you?
Yeah, can't complain, mate. No one listens, you know the drill. But big introduction, of course. The first time on Aussie Blues Down Under. He's finally here. Episode number 4. Rich.
Well,
good to
I'm
finally
finally
have you. Good to finally have you here.
Yeah, finally back down under, so I can talk from the place that from the right place now.
A place of comfort, yeah.
It's Sydney against Melbourne, is it? There we go.
Well, yeah, Sydney against Melbourne's like Manchester against Liverpool, with Sydney being Manchester. So,
hello.
Yeah,
we'll give up. We won't even bother with that argument.
Yeah. Yeah, Melbourne's just.
Well, we can debate Nunes because we may as well have debates. You've got a chance with Alan.
Yeah, Melbourne's just full of misery guts, ladies and gentlemen. I present to you Exhibit A. So, big up to everybody who's involved with today's chat as well too. Don't forget to give it a like as you come through. If you're new as well, don't forget to subscribe as well. Just quickly go through who's in the building here at the moment. Ethan's here, Mike's here. Ash, big up yourself, mate. Adam Quinn, always good to see you, mate. Ed's in the building as well. Hope you're enjoying this with your breakfast, mate. Sam Sitsy's in the building. Dash, always a pleasure, mate. Never a chore. SOS, Keely, big up, mate. The Tassie Devil, hope you're doing well, mate. Adam's in the building. Big up to everybody. We'll look forward to chatting to more of you as we go on. Now, before we carry on, just wanted to clear the air with some things with everybody out there. Now, of course, we've been a little bit sort of off camera, off mic, since the weekend. And, a lot of that had to do with a particular result down on the South Coast. But a lot of it also had to do with just certain things that were just happening sort of away from YouTube. For those who aren't too sure about it, we're not going to go into too much detail, particularly myself, for a couple of reasons. One, it's not as close to home for me. And number two, one of the best decisions I ever made in my life was to never, ever sign up to X or Twitter. And I believe that a lot of it has to do with that. So I don't want to go into too much detail, but that's why Martin will go into full detail about it on the Thursday night chat. So if anybody has any questions for it, they're going to be ignored. If you continue, we'll probably get the moderators just to give you a bit of a timeout. So don't talk about those sort of things here now. I know you guys are fantastic. The integrity of this community is second to none. So more than anything, I think what we're really looking forward to doing is probably talking about what's been kicking off over the last 24 to 36 hours, basically. You put your Florian Wirtz in, you put your Florian Wirtz out, hopefully shake it all about, and maybe you'll be holding a shirt in the next few months. We'll wait and see. But I think we just have to sort of clear the air about the weekend, of course, guys, but I don't really want to spend more than a couple of minutes with each of you because I think we can all collectively probably have the same opinion about Saturday's performance. But I just want to get your quick little few minutes about it, guys. But yeah, we'll move on to more positive topics, basically. But Rich, you go first. Just talk about the weekend, just what you thought.
Pat, I think you bang on about Twitter and stuff. I don't go on it either, and I think over the last year there has been a lot of nonsense at times, but it's generally been when we're fast asleep in bed in Australia, getting our Z's in before work. And, so it's really not something any of us have been involved in so let's focus on the more important things, which is City. I was almost Alan-esque on at Saturday night when I
you were.
Came back from a mate's 50th to watch what for me was our most disappointing performance of the season. And I'll put that as a more disappointing performance even than the games we threw away 3-0 leads in, because it was the worst 11 for a game of the nature it was that Pep has picked in his tenure at Manchester City. Not against the players individually playing, but everything was just wrong about the team. We were playing Southampton. Southampton were at the time the worst team in Premier League history. We've turned them into the second worst team in Premier League history by the result they got. But we played a team that was right for playing in Aston Villa, possibly right for playing in Bournemouth, a team that are really going to give us a go, are going to put pressure on us, are going to break effectively. Southampton have not shown all season any way to do all of that. So for example, at right back, Núñez is probably our best crosser of the ball, the best player at actually getting the ball on a player's head, something that we desperately needed in that game. Rico is one of our best players or Rico, however you want to call him, is one of our best players at keeping the ball. We didn't need to play a player there to keep the ball. We then played Akanji, brilliant defender, not one of our most effective attacking defenders. So it seemed to me we had Núñez and O'Reilly, who are really effective attacking, have Vardiol at centre-back with Diaz, and we've got a really effective attacking platform. Instead, we played Rico and we played Vardiol left-back and brought in Akanji. So we really beefed up defensive play for a game that was never out of our final third of the pitch. Then in midfield, I don't think Marmoush was my man of the match in 5 minutes. He did more to create movement and create problems for them. So, and again, that wasn't, not picking him. That's on Pep. Picking, the fullbacks he did for that game and bringing back in Akanji, that was Pep. Picking the midfield he did, that was Pep. And I just looked at that, and honestly, I would have had, be it Savio, Grealish, Núñez, even Nico getting the ball forward, Nico Riley. I would have had players like that, knowing that we were going to have dominance, knowing that they are a poor side and we should have beaten them. So I'm not going to say one word about the players and them getting it wrong. It was 100% on Pep. He had a brain fart, best manager we've ever had, no doubt, and I'm not slating him off. But for whatever reason, he suddenly thought we were away at PSG and not playing Southampton. He showed them way, way, way too much respect. And that cost us the game because we did not look threatening till about the 87th minute when Marmoush came on. And honestly, we didn't deserve the win. We didn't remotely deserve the win. I think it would have been wrong. And after the debate last week about sexy football versus non-sexy football, let's have a bit of sexy, because I would have rather lost that game 4-3 with a bit of sexiness than watch that absolute bore fest, which that game was. Rich Rants is now officially over, and we can move on to more happy topics.
Well, that was short and sweet anyway, mate. But yeah, we always appreciate a good double R, that's for sure, mate. Throw it to you, Alan. I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Did you look at sort of lineup and the way we played and the players who came in for this game? Maybe Pep had one eye on the cup final, knowing that you don't really want to bring players in first game from back in fitness straight into Wembley.
Yes, I do. But I thought our performance was pathetic. I think the players forgot to shoot throughout the game, apart from Marmoush. I think it was everyone who played in that game, apart from Kovacic, who was just basically shit. And I will say politely, they were shit. We didn't shoot. We didn't even look like shooting. Yeah, we didn't look like shooting. When Marmoush came on and hit the bar, it was great. Kev had 3 or 4 free kicks outside the box and didn't hit the target with any of them, which I thought was poor. I personally thought that even when Doku came on start the second half, which was a good move, didn't threaten too much. He ran at people, but as usual, no end-up product with him. He even passed the ball behind Haaland when he had the chance to score. And the whole thing was just a bot's job. It was terrible. There was no urgency.
I mean, Alan, with
hang on. Let me finish.
He's not seated by 10 players in the box, is he? I mean,
I know.
The only way to play Doku in a game like that is to try and win a penalty.
Correct. But at the end of the day, they were sat deep, Southampton. Yeah, very deep. So shoot outside the box. There's enough talent out there to shoot. And I was sat there, I'm thinking, what the hell are they doing? And drawing to Southampton is Well, it's pathetic, isn't it? Let's be honest. You know, the worst thing about it is like in the last second of the game, Southampton broke away and nearly scored. You could have lost it, let alone draw.
Yeah, that would have been quite funny, wouldn't it? I mean, it would have been like a Richard Danone goal, you know, being Middlesbrough's only shot on target.
We had a game like that against Bolton a few years back too, didn't we? Hit the woodwork like half a dozen times.
Yeah,
yeah.
The only thing, the bright spark about the whole day, and the whole evening for us watching the game, was knowing that Martin had driven 5 hours down there and 5 hours back for that. Martin, if you're listening, do not go to an away game again because we never win. We don't win when it goes.
Yeah, we'll have to ask him on Thursday night chat what's his away record now, because this might be the be all and end all of like a really bad record as far as we know. So yeah, possible.
He's not got a great record, mate. I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's not good.
Actually,
it's not good.
You should pay me to come over because I think I'm on a run of about 6 or 7 away wins on the
CM
trot.
City just said in the comments here that Martin's going to Fulham. Oh, we're screwed now. Europa League, here we come, everybody.
Well, I'll say
if we end up in Europa League spots,
you know,
you know who to blame.
Fortunately, a lot of our rivals are having similar problems too. So, you know, I think I'm not sure that
how many points do you think we need, Rich? How many points do you think
I wouldn't be surprised if we got top 5 winning one of the last 2 games the way everything's going at the moment. And I think we've got to win at least another game. But, you know, other people are dropping. You're seeing the form just drop off.
Yeah. Of the teams that are pursuing the top 5, and that's everything from Newcastle in 3rd to is Forest now in 7th, I think? Or is it Aston Villa still in 7th? I think it might be Forest.
We can still fit it.
Who is probably the most informed? I'd probably say Newcastle at the moment is the most informed.
Yeah, you definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just given the way things are at the moment, it's probably safe to say that they're the most likely to fill up, get 3rd spot, or at least, you know, guarantee Champions League football. I'd say we're not too far behind them. I think that we have I think also too the thing that we've got to be a little bit fortunate about was, you know, it's, you don't want to rely on this, you know, we don't want to say that like this was our copium, you know, after the weekend, but it certainly did help knowing that Newcastle and Chelsea were playing, because you knew you could at least look at those teams and say, well, at least one of them's going to drop. And it ended up being Chelsea. And as a matter of fact, we ended up gaining a point on them. So you never know. Sometimes these points make a difference, but it's just the manner in which we did it and who we did it against. You know, if we've been waxing on about on this show for all season about we judge the performances based on what the other opposition's position in the table was. This was probably the one time where we could probably actually justify saying that, to be honest, because we've got to say Southampton have been terrible this season. But it's it's a disappointing one, and you know, I think the less we speak about it, the better. But you know, for all we know, guys, you know, we'll go back in 2 or 3 years' time and probably laugh our heads off about this as we're lifting another Premier League title.
It was typical. So. It was typical. It was typical City, wasn't it, Rich?
Very typical City.
Well,
yeah.
Do you know, it was typical City a decade, 20 years ago. It's not typical City of late. We've not, in the last 5-10 years, you put us away against the worst team in Premier League history, and we'd normally be scoring 6 or 7. So, but that's going back a decade, you know. It's not, you know, we haven't done that, particularly under Pep, or that much since even Mancuni's day. And that's, so it's typical City for old fans like us, but I don't think it is nowadays.
It wasn't good.
Just quickly go through some of the chat here as well. Quickly, Jarvis, just seen, about Florian Wirtz was in Manchester. We'll get onto that in a second because, I'm dying to talk about transfers because, the sooner we talk about that, the sooner I don't have to worry about the travesty that was Saturday afternoon. All good. Who else was here? Mark B. How big is City support down under compared to other Premier League teams? I have a few things to say, but maybe Rich might have a bit of a...
honestly, it depends on your age. You know, if I talk to my kids who they're both at high school now, City would be close to the biggest supported team in a Sydney high school now. Certainly both my kids can talk about 4 or 5 other kids in the year who are City fans. If you go to the park to watch kids, take your kids to the park and stuff, and there's football matches going on, there'll be as many more Harlan shirts, City shirts than any other English shirt. I'd still say in Sydney, you'd probably still see more Barca than anyone. I'd probably see more Barca shirts than anyone else. I
would say
Liverpool.
Here in Melbourne,
after City, it's Liverpool.
I
still say many United shirts.
Yeah, I'll still say, it doesn't have the global presence as it did, say, 20 years ago, but you still see a lot of Italian teams.
Yeah,
you will still see both Milan teams, Juventus.
If you're talking about my age, or even more so Alan's age, Liverpool by far the biggest supported team because of Craig Johnston and that great team of the 80s. I would say, there's 5 or 10 Liverpool fans for every City fan at our age, if not more, because there are not that many Aussie City fans who aren't people who've emigrated over from, the UK, from Manchester, much over, probably 35, 40.
Yeah,
you're probably one of the.
Maybe Rich, it's probably best to explain. It's probably best to explain how difficult it was to watch not just Premier League, but watch City play back in those days as well too. And this is as recent as, say, like the early 2000s as well.
It's different in Melbourne.
Explain how difficult it was. Yeah,
different in Melbourne.
Yeah, I remember once. This is one of my stupidest days of my life, and also sums up how stupid Australia can be at times. I was traveling back from Alice Springs to Sydney. Adelaide to Sydney.
You're driving back from Alice Springs and you're bloody calling Australia stupid.
I was on the train from Adelaide to Sydney. We got from Adelaide to Melbourne and found that the connecting train had left half an hour earlier because the clocks had changed and no one at Australia Rail or whoever manages that thing had figured it out. So I'm in Melbourne. The next train is 12 hours to get to Sydney because it's basically 2 a day, 1 morning, 1 night. And City were on against Wolves that night. And it was the first time City had been on about 2 months because we'd been relegated in 96. It was 96, 97 season. And it was the first time I had a chance to see City in 2 months. And they said, well, you can only get the train tonight. So I think I think it might even have been Optus back then or Foxtel.
It probably would have been Optus. Fox maybe, yeah.
Optus was quite big, a lot of half the backpackers when I was over were going door to door selling Optus. So Optus was really taking off.
I don't think Optus was that big in terms of TV broadcasting. I think they only had maybe one. They had some sort of sub channel for.
But they were. They were broadcasting other people's material, so they might have been broadcasting Sky or something for him. But anyway, so I was in Melbourne. I could either kill 12 hours, get the train, which I'd port for, but it was my one chance to watch City. So I went and found a car hire and paid $300 or something stupid to hire a car one way from Melbourne to Sydney. Thankfully, it was before there was too much checking of speeding because I had about 9 hours to get from Melbourne to Sydney, dump the car and go to the pub to watch City. So I did it, rush into the pub, sit down 5 minutes before kickoff. I think there was only me as a City fan out there and about 2 old Wolf fans in there. And then we lost 1-0 to a 88th minute goal from, I can't remember whether it was Steve, but it might have been Robbie Keane actually scored the winner. And it was like, that was just like, half a week's wages wasted and a 10-hour drive to watch that shower. So it wasn't easy. And I used to get football reports by fax. I get my mum or my brother to go and fax me from their work to my work the match reports from like the Manchester Evening News or from the Sunday paper, and you'd have to phone mates to find out scores or get BBC World Service.
Yep. I've heard stories too about guys getting about some of the guys from the older groups as well too, like getting air freight to VHS tapings from BBC of like a month's worth of matches or something like that as well too.
Mind you, I think
to keep up to date.
Was my brother Ed, who's a massive blue, was in travelling around the middle of Africa when City played Gillingham, and the BBC World Service had the commentary of the game. But at 90 minutes, they stopped the commentary and went off to some other show, and they're there in the middle of of Africa, knowing that we've pulled back and equalised, but not knowing what actually happened with the extra time and the penalties for half a day later when they managed to get to a place with a phone and phone home.
Yeah, Alan, any memories for you, mate? And what do you see? It's very generational, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Melbourne's is because of the history of that many Italians and that many Greeks here, because obviously they got all the immigrants came from after the war. There's that because of the Catholic influence, they're all massive Liverpool or Man United fans here, right? Huge numbers of Liverpool, huge numbers.
And massive Italian support. I remember when we played Roma.
Well, it was
Melbourne,
the reason why
more Roma fans in Melbourne than City.
I remember that pre-season, that match against Roma. That was Raheem Sterling's first game, and the second he even walked on the pitch, it was just hammered with booze, and there were just dozens of people standing around us in Roma shirts booing Raheem Sterling. I'm like,
the history of Melbourne. The history of Melbourne after the Second World War, because Italy and Greece got absolutely smashed by the Germans, right? Big time in the war. They moved millions of people from Greece and Italy to Melbourne to work in the factories. That's why they have a big influence. And
don't forget the Snowy Mountains scheme as well too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which for everybody out there, if you don't know history, that's the hydroelectric dam they built after the war as well too, which is still operating today as well.
Alan, I think even today that Melbourne after Athens is I think it's Melbourne, then Athens, and London are the biggest cities in the world with
Sydney's up there too.
Population.
Yeah, they've got a big. So and they're all massive Liverpool fans here. It dwarfs everybody else. And City fans have grown in Melbourne, but probably not as much as in Sydney, I don't think.
It's Craig. I mean, they had Craig Johnson, and
exactly.
Then later on, the other one that there's quite a few fans you meet more in that kind of 30s age because of Kuhl and Viduka and stuff is Leeds. There's a much higher amount of Leeds fans than you'd expect.
Leeds fans are big because of that in Melbourne.
But you should expect it as well too, because Kuhl and Viduka had such a huge influence on Australian football in our golden age as well.
Incredible.
Yeah. So you see more Liverpool fans, and when they won the league like the other week, I was in the pub. My God, it was packed full of them, and we were in the function room at the side upstairs, and we had to be escorted out round the back to get there because it was just so many of them. And there's a ridiculous amount of Liverpool fans. They're obsessed with them, and they're just as bad for violence as they are in Liverpool.
Do you know the hard thing? I'm asking both of you on the Liverpool fans. Do you think there were? I just got the impression with quite a few that there was a lot of almost fakery in celebrating the league. They were trying to celebrate it as if it was a shock and they'd won it in the last minute, and massive celebrations, but it wasn't real. We know
like they could never shake the anticlimax of it. There was an anticlimax of it. Yeah.
We know that when West Brom beat United, we all had a good laugh, but it wasn't like you celebrated it like you did when you beat Villa.
If you asked 100 Scousers in the room and you said those 2 seasons where they lost to us by a point, would this current Liverpool squad be able to beat that? They'd all say absolutely not.
Not close. Not
even close.
I've said time and time again, the Liverpool side that came second to us in 19 was the second best side the Premier League's ever had. That side was way above any United side. It was way above any Chelsea side. And that side would have won any other title. I don't know about 17, 18, but that was the same City side. That side would have won the title in any other year, probably. Yeah. Apart from that year. And that was their peak. And it's like this year, Mo Salah is player of the year by a mile. I don't know that anyone can argue with that. But I don't think it's Mo Salah's best season for Liverpool. I just think the drop off in everyone else, Palmer, Foden, Odegaard, all the other top players at the top sides from last year have been mediocre this year.
It's like my mate back in Liverpool. I've got a mate over there who goes to the games. He says, Liverpool haven't been that good this year. It's only because everyone else has been shit. That's his exact words. And he's not wrong. Yep. He's not wrong.
But they're by far the best team in the Premier League this year. They deserve it, fair play.
Yeah.
And we've had league titles. We've won, I think, that's one thing. We were phenomenal in 17-18, but no one else was that good. That's why I loved 18-19. That's a title I will look back as probably my fondest memory. Although Arsenal in 23, where we were up against a team who was playing brilliantly, who was playing fantastic football, and the league was won by Rizzler thin margin, and it quite literally was that season because it was Johnny Stones's 1 centimetre save of the ball on our goal line that was the difference. So it was quite literally won by a centimetre, and that was just phenomenal.
When you think about it, that happened on 2 occasions too, because remember he had that 1-0 at Burnley where Guerrero scored and only went like a 1.5 centimetres over the line. Yeah. So
it's a game of fine margins.
The fact that league was won by mere inches on more than one occasion just is what makes that season even more remarkable. What even makes it more remarkable is we just talked about that John Stones' goal line clearance. We talked about Aguero getting it over the line by barely nothing, and then really the goal that seals it is a 30-yard driller from a centre back in Vincent Kompany's goal. So it's just remarkable how there's just so many fine margins, and yet at the end of the day, what really put the nail in the coffin was a worldie. And it's one of those remarkable seasons. It's certainly one of those ones where once we get to like 10 years, like we're celebrating 10 years of it, there's going to be so many memories or so many things that we'll talk about because it's probably too young in our minds to really be nostalgic about it, but it's still going to be looked back as one of the most spectacular seasons ever. But
but we know that winning the league, you can't beat winning the league on the pitch on the last week of the season. That is, and we've done that 4 or 5 times now. That is what football's all about. Winning it when someone else loses, or 5 weeks from the end of the season, or those other things. It just isn't the rush, because there's everything about life in a way is the highs and the lows. The beauty of the win where you might not win is that it's that much more exciting because there's real jeopardy. And I think it's.
If you're talking about Vinny's goal, I don't need to be a reminder, mate, because it is still a running joke in the Sydney Blues that I fainted when Vincent Kompany scored.
Yeah.
And of all the people in the group to faint, I'm not the one that you want to have faint. Let me tell you. So
did you faint?
Yeah, oh, no. I fainted. Yeah. We're getting a little bit off track here, telling some good stories and that. But chat, if you're good to listen to it, really appreciate it. Don't forget to give us a like too. Get it to 115. That's our company rule. We've got to get every show up to 115 likes. So big up to everybody. But
if you don't know where the likes are, it's the one with the thumb up like that. Press that.
It's good to see that thumb, Alan.
Yeah, no problem.
But we got so the story with that is, now if we remember, that match was moved to a weeknight because of the cup semi-final. I can't even remember who we played in that semi-final, actually. No, Brighton. We played Brighton. That's right. So it got moved to midweek. And I had the morning free to watch the game because any games in the UK, usually 8 o'clock at night, they're all about 5, 6, 7 in the morning, depending what time of year it is. This game was like 5 a.m. and I think I just worked something like a 13-hour shift at Qantas the night before. And I said to myself, I'm going to get up and watch this game, but I think I had a really poor sleep. I was actually a little bit nervous about the game and all that sort of stuff. And I remember I was just this really, really jittery mess. I was just like, every time I drove into the city to watch it. And I remember every time I was at the traffic lights, I'd hit the accelerator, but I didn't realize how hard I hit it. So I'd be jumping off the line and I was just super jittery. And I was like, the last thing I need is like coffee right now. And I didn't realize how like physically and emotionally exhausted I was, because it wasn't just that game. It was just the whole having to win 13, 14 in a row just to keep 1 point ahead all the time of Liverpool and all that. And I remember when the goal went in, at first I thought it just hit the side netting. I didn't realize it went in. But then when I saw it bounce back out, and then I think David Silva just kicks it up in celebration, and I see everybody else get up with me, I get up as well too. But then as I get up, I just remember just going so like numb like just basically like face down to my chest, and just like felt, just all of a sudden just sort of felt really, really sort of like just hazy and everything and that. But then the problem I had was that at the old setup in Cheers Bar, which is very much like an old sort of, Irish pub, like old mahogany floors and walls and columns and all that sort of stuff. There was like a lounge. There was like a couple of long lounges on the upstairs area, and they're separated by like this really like hardwood tables, for people to put the drinks and the meals on and things like that. And these lounges are probably the best part of like 10 foot long. And then the wooden bits are only about maybe not even 3 foot by 3 foot. And I kept falling over, but I couldn't get, and every time I got up, I'd get faint again. I'd sort of fall down. But instead of falling on this couch, I was falling on this hardwood bench top and just absolutely just smashing my chest and my neck into this thing. So I was just beating myself up even more while I was trying to gain like consciousness again. And of course, everybody comes running like, what the hell? Like, Pat, you're right. And I was just, I remember I think at one point said, like, please tell me Vinny just scored that. Like, and they're just like, yeah, sort of thing. And then I remember when I got up again for the rest of the game, I just had these awful chest pains. I called up work and I told them what happened. They said, no, don't even bother coming into work today. We'll put you as sick. Like, I didn't tell them why it happened. I just said I had like an episode. And they said, yeah, don't come in today. And then sure enough, like I'd had like another couple of days off, went to the doctor, got on my certifications. And then I remember after about 3 days after it happened, my whole chest, like from basically my upper pectorals down to like my sternum, was just yellow and purple, like all the way across it, because I bruised up my chest so much. And it was, and I remember that was sort of one of those ones where it's just like from now on, in the interest of self-preservation, it's like I'm only going to go watch City play when I know I've had like a good amount of sleep from now on. Because if anybody's had not had the opportunity to watch City play in this part of the world, once you understand what it means to actually try and get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, every single weekend, week in, week out, it takes a toll on you. And it's tough.
Pat, what would have sorted you out?
What?
Guinness. You never faint after you've had a few Guinnesses. The iron, everything is good for you, keeps you. So if you're in Cheers, drink Guinness. And you'll never have that problem.
We've never let a bad kickoff time get in the way of a few good drinks, have we? So yeah, but
no.
Look, we got a little bit sidetracked
right
there, but this is the sort of talking that me and Rich
drinks.
wanted to do for our inaugural episode back 4 weeks ago. So I'm glad we got this out of the way. Martin's just a little bit out at the moment, so once he's around, we'll start posting a bit more comments and we'll try and get a bit more interaction going with everybody. But good to see everybody chatting as well. Thunder Road, I see you in there. Big up, mate. Kathy's in the building. Always good to see you, sweetheart. Thank you. Linny's in the building. Thank you, my friend. Always good. House Captain, big up. Coochie Catcher, what a name. That's awesome. But yeah, always good to see everybody here. It is always a pleasure. Going to quickly just go through, of course, before the transfers, Keeley. Just mentioned thoughts on the new home kit, which obviously got released at 8 p.m. yesterday, 5 p.m. today. 5 p.m. Yesterday as well.
You like it?
Time. Yeah, this is what we want to get to. So there's certain things that I like and there's certain things that I don't like, and that's nothing to do with the aesthetics of it either. But what do you guys think? I know it's always good chat to talk about the kits, but I've got to be honest with you. Given what the proposals are for the other two kits, I think we're more hyped over those.
Yeah, I don't like the shirt. I don't like the shorts. I don't like the socks. So all in all,
well, that's you said, Alan.
It's not my favourite.
It's not the worst one, but it's not. What do you think? Like, what's up there as like your worst ones?
Personally, I don't like this down here. Keep it simple.
Are you sort of traditional in a way? Alan, where sashes belong on away kits and third kits?
Yeah,
no, they belong. Yeah. They belong on marches in places like Ulster, not in
and hen weekends,
not on football kits at all. Hen weekends and graduations in America. I mean, I've never been a fan of our away sashes, to be honest. My away kits, the old AC Milan red black stripes, was most of my favourite away kits like that. So I'm not a fan on away kits, but on a home kit, it's just and awesome. Not playing with white shorts. Anytime it's not white shorts, it's for me. It just does not look as good. And
to be honest, if you look at the kit itself, take the sash away, Rich. Take the sash away, and it's got these little sort of white tags, like little white sort of collars, semi collars around the sleeves.
Yeah,
but if you go and put it next it next to the Centurion's kit, looks exactly the same. It's that same color of like pale blue, very similar sort of setup with the collar and everything like that. It looks like a dead, without the sash, it looks like a dead ringer of the Centurion's kit. And to me, it's like, that's a Nike kit. This is Puma. Lacks a bit of creativity for me. It's not our worst one, but it's certainly not something I'll be running to the city store with the credit card number.
It's shite.
Do you think it would have been better without the sash?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if many fans really want a sash on a home shirt.
Yeah. Most of the chat saying the same thing as well, too. They're not really fans of the sashes. It's a traditional thing now. It belongs on away kits. It belongs on third kits. If it sort of inverts colors on a third kit, or if we ever go back to the traditional red and black, then all for it. But who knows? Maybe if it comes, maybe if this kit comes back with negative reviews, maybe they might encourage them to bring back the old red and black sash. So,
well, hopefully they do.
And the other thing I can't be doing with is launching kits 2 or 3 months early in this. I mean, you don't launch a kit before the last one's even finished its season. You know, I think they try to sneak it up so far that we're going to launch their 26 kit in like September 25, and they're going to get a whole extra year's kit sales, and they're sneaking it up a month or two every year, hoping we don't notice. But you know, with the cost of them as well, it's like 80 quid or something. I mean, it's
Nick's in the chat. He says he loves the kit. Alan,
I'll tell you where it belongs: in the toilet to wipe my backside on. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mancunian Way's biggest Newcastle fan there, Mr. Allen. Well, actually, no, he should be happy anyway, because that proposed away kit's going to be black and white, so I can see you buying a couple of those for yourself. Yeah, mate. Yeah, most people are all feeling the same as well about that too. Look, we won't keep anybody holding too long. Let's get into the transfers. Now, first things first, we've got to go trace our steps back a little bit to the earlier in the week. Obviously, the talk was about Florian Wirtz, and then all of a sudden, you know, we talked about this. I think LB, you know, Steam Company, and a few others have been talking about this possibility of us, you know, being linked with Florian Wirtz. And then all of a sudden we get reports from Germany. I believe it was Christian Falk who's come out and basically said that, no, there's nothing else. It's Bayern. It's Bayern, or he stays at Leverkusen. That's the only team. He's only going to Bavaria. That's how it's going to be. Massive contract, massive years. He's going to stay in Germany for the rest of his career, which we'll dissect a little bit now, because certainly after what's happened over the last 24 hours, that has certainly changed things quite a lot. You know, given the fact that, big up to Cade and a few of the others in the chat, because they're mentioning that the fact that him and his family were in Manchester just for a day trip yesterday as well too. Obviously, you know, checking out the facilities, meeting with Khaldun as well. For the record, they did not meet with Pep. I believe Pep was out of town, but they're certainly showing some interest in the club as well too. So this really sort of contradicts anything that the German media, particularly Bild, and particularly what Christian Falk said as well. I'll get to what you guys said. Yeah, Rich, I'll ask you. Oh, sorry, Alan, I'll ask you first. But does that look like a bit of jumping the gun from what people propose as a bit of a pro Bayern or pro sort of UEFA established club sort of propaganda sort of thing?
If anyone needs evidence that reporters and journalists lie through their teeth consistently, you've just seen an example of it. Because they spin and bullshit left, right, and centre to their own agenda. In Germany, they've done it again. In England, they do it. They just lie to sell pay to sell.
But you know, but you say that
they do. They lie. Hear me out.
But,
hear me out.
But if you were a betting man, what club? If you had to put your life on him, go to one club. What club would you bet today?
Munich.
Yeah. So it's a lie, but it's a lie that's probably closer to the truth than any other.
Yeah, well, it is. Well, it's because you have to move because he stays in Germany. Right? They probably agreed to come and see City's facilities and chat to them 2 weeks ago, right? And so they've done that. So it does not mean that he's signing for City. Well, we'll see one thing. I'm pleased they're trying to get players of his ilk. And that proves that they're trying to do the right thing and get someone of his standard. If we get him, fantastic. I'm happy. But if we don't, right? It's no fault of City's, because at least they're trying to get the right sort of players. We just have to wait and see and play and let it play out. We just have to wait and see.
Alan, are you happy that maybe the club's been a bit more efficient with this, given the history we had with, Rice and Bellingham dragging out so long as well too? It seems like we're actually now trying to take some affirmative sort of action, but also too that early transfer window is sort of forced our hand a little bit as well too. So it's good to see that we're not dragging our knuckles about it, basically.
Well, it's not just that. They're looking at other players now, right? Yeah. Because it's not guaranteed. So you've got to look at other players, right?
Well, a couple of things.
If it comes off, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it.
Pat, I would treat Bellingham and Rice very, very differently. I think City and Liverpool and Real Madrid and possibly others, with Bellingham, put in the hard yards over 18 months to try and get Bellingham. Bellingham made a call, and you can see the type of person and player he is. He's suited by Madrid far more than he's suited by, City or Liverpool. He's got an ego that's too big, probably even for Liverpool. I'm not sure there's another team he could be at, and that there's any other players apart from Mbappe and Vinicius who he should be playing with. At the time, disappointed, because I do think if he can learn to play as a team player, he has a lot of elements of his game that are exceptional. So I think City did the right thing with him, but ultimately a decision was made that wasn't. Rice, I think the complete opposite. Rice, there was very, very little lining that up for 18 months beforehand in comparison.
Knee-jerk reaction.
It looked to me like, a knee-jerk reaction to not having got Bellingham, and then just, Arsenal had done all the work and we just come in and think, we'll just chuck 100 million and he'll sign for us because we're better. I suppose
the manner in which that was a little bit quicker too, because we sort of set our price at 85 million pounds, and Arsenal just came in with joining City, just blew it out of the water.
But joining City was the wrong. I think Arsenal had been in for him for much, much longer, had spent a lot more time thinking about it, and were a lot more professional about it. I don't think we were ever that serious there, or we didn't certainly behave like we were. But I think with Wirtz we are. I think with Bellingham we were, and I think with Haaland we were. Let's hope that Wirtz goes the Haaland way. Not the Bellingham.
I'll tell you what we did do after that. Both of them, we panic buyed and bought Núñez, and we did.
Best right back in the Premier League now, so that's all right.
The weekend proved that, Alan, too. So
So but as for Wirtz, I find it amusing, and I was giving LB a bit of stick on the show last Friday and others. People are getting so high and low about Wirtz based on the 1 minute he's signing, the next minute it's definitely off. Truth is, it's always been going along like that, and some people go like that, and some people go down there. Truth is, we probably have around about a third chance of signing him, maybe 25%, a third chance he'll choose City. Financially, in terms of career opportunities and everything else, if you've got Real Madrid, City and Bayern, you can make strong cases for each of those being the best move for him. Football-wise, money-wise, profile-wise. We've got the Premier League, which will give exposure bigger than anyone else. Real Madrid have got that. Being a German player at Bayern gives you opportunities. So all three of those could be good moves. And hopefully he just looks at how his game suits the players he's going to play with. How his game, how he thinks he'll go with the manager, how they're going to play him. I'd imagine all will offer similar money, and he makes the right decision for him. And and to be, it's not a bad choice, is it? He can go to Madrid, and he can be slipping the ball through to the likes of Vinicius, Bellingham, Rodrygo, and Mbappe. He can come to City. He's got Marmoush and Haaland. Hopefully, some of the other players back in form. And if he goes to Bayern, he's got the talent they've got there. So, good.
It's down. It's left to him. It's left to him now. He on the side.
Yeah,
he will decide himself. So if we don't get
I've
him,
no doubt.
Fine.
I've no doubt his club would want him to come to City because they've lost the manager to Madrid, so they'll probably be a little bit sore about that. They won't want him going to Germany, so I think the club will want him to stay there. You know, his mum will probably want him as close to home as possible. You know, so she'll want Bayern, and
despite the fact that he's only an hour and a half flight away. But
yeah, but you know what I mean. Yeah. There'll be different people talking to him for different angles. If it's purely about money, then you know there's cases either way. There's the Premier League power, there's the power of Madrid, and then there's being a German in Bayern. And I think all of those, anyone can make a case for any of those being the best.
Yeah, there is talks that he'd obviously agreed to personal terms of Bayern, which is what a lot of players do anyway. A lot of the times they agree personal terms months before the transfers even begin, basically. But I do wonder if the salary or the contract that we offered to Wirtz would be on a sort of on a par to what we believe Bayern Munich have offered, because some of the reports are it's in excess of 400,000 to 500,000 euro per week or something like that. But I don't know if City would go to that. But do you think City would be willing to extend maybe try and offer a few more years?
That's what we're paying.
Would they even offer a few more years rather than more of a salary?
Because
some players prefer the longevity than the cash.
We're paying De Bruyne that now, and we're clearing that off for salary. So I don't see any reason why City or Madrid. In fact, Madrid might find it hardest to match that salary wise because they've got Mbappe's salary and stuff and some renewals. But I don't think salary is going to come into it between City and Bayern.
Well, you mentioned Real Madrid because obviously there has been a little bit of talk too about Rodrygo as well, and I think while a lot of us were quick to sort of move on from the news that Christian Falk gave us earlier in the week, which sort of basically put the whole Wirtz thing to bed before it suddenly rose again. We'll talk about Rodrygo, and I think there's certainly a lot of good things to say about this. One, because I kind of am a little bit intrigued by the possibility of this happening because, it's first of all, there's nothing really that we do business with Real Madrid, basically. Come to think of it, the only thing I can possibly think of us doing any sort of business with us in recent years is with Brahim Diaz, but that was, 7-8 years ago now, basically. But, there might be some sort of substance to this. Who knows? I still personally believe from a financial standpoint, I think Madrid is still, reeling from, that 150 million, whatever it was, signing on bonus to Mbappe. So you wonder if maybe
I think
surplus to the amount of forwards that they have, and also the young players that are coming through, which Nick mentioned as well too. You've got players like Arda Güler, they've got Endrick as well too. Like they might want to try and recoup some of that money if they sell Rodrygo one as well too.
Nah, Patrick, I don't think it's the youth players. I think it's whether they get a De Bruyne, Florian Wirtz player in, because I think at the moment the problem for Madrid is that Bellingham isn't really a playmaker. Bellingham's really someone who should almost be playing like some kind of physical false nine or something. So for me, Bellingham should be in their front three formally. And, given where Madrid are, that's probably going to be with Mbappe and Vinicius, in which case there isn't a slot for Rodrygo. But that depends on Madrid signing a player like the next De Bruyne, like Wirtz, who can supply their forwards. And I think and that's why in many ways, I think their need for Florian Wirtz is huge. I'm not sure I think Bayern particularly need him because I think actually Harry Kane's almost, he's almost a 10. Musiala's someone who can play that role. So for me, I don't see it Bayern where they really need Wirtz. I see in City and Madrid a huge hole, a huge Wirtz-sized hole. So to me, if Wirtz goes to Madrid, he's then playing behind a front three. And that means one of their 4-star players isn't going to be first choice. It's not going to be Mbappe. It's not going to be Bellingham. And it's not going to be Vinicius.
So you're not ruling out Wirtz, Madrid going in for Wirtz at some point.
Well, I think they need him almost more than City do. I think they have a desperate need for a player.
I agree.
Especially with their forwards. So that to me means Rodrygo's on the outer. If Rodrygo's on the outer, there's only 2 or 3 clubs he could go to. They were going to afford him, and he would want to go to. So that then becomes real. And to be honest, I'm not against it, because in all the times I've watched Madrid, the one player who I haven't come to despise, I mean, I don't despise Modric or, even Toni Kroos, but of their star
those two are
in
quality.
recent years,
They still are. They're still professionals. Yeah.
I've really come to dislike, Ronaldo and Vinicius and Mbappe and Bellingham, and the one player who has never seemed to have that giant-sized ego, has always seemed to play for the team more than himself, has been Rodrygo. So if we could get him, I'd be fine with that. I'd have no issue at all. We then need to find a playmaker, but
Alan, Rodrygo, do you think it means maybe someone like Jeremy Doku's spot in the squad might be a little bit?
If Rodrygo is available, if Rodrygo is available and we got him, I'll be over the moon, because I personally think he's better than the wingers we've got. I don't rate our wing. The wide players we've got, I don't rate, apart from Oskimo. The rest of them, I don't rate.
I'm not sure. I think Savio's shown a lot this season. I think to come from
playing Alan, a lot of the mistakes he's made, though, are the mistakes of like a raw 20-year-old player.
Yeah,
I think if you give him another season, then this conversation might be a little bit more justified.
Well, listen,
I think so.
Their end product, both of them, their end products are poor, in my opinion.
Honestly, you watch David Silva's first season, his end product, you'd have probably sold him. Almost certainly you'd have been selling him. But the fact is, it takes time to come to this country and do it. And if you're a 20-year-old kid, not coming even from one of the top teams in Spain under that pressure, I think he's done well, all things considered, this season, and I think he's got.
Where are we going to play? Where are we going to play Echeverri? Because we seem to overlook him every single time.
I think he'll be, he'll be playing instead of Florian Wirtz, because if we get Rodrygo, the only way we get Rodrygo is if we don't get Wirtz, and Wirtz goes to Madrid, and if that happens, then we're going to have a big hole. Which, if it's not Foden, because Foden's about the only player who, if he gets his form back, could play that for us. It's going to, he might have to give someone like Echeverri a go.
He's going to get his health back, because his health is not good. That's why he only plays 60 minutes. That's why he only plays 60 minutes a game.
No, I agree, and I think that's why we want Wirtz. But if Wirtz comes in, Echeverri is going to be, he's going to be time limited.
Yep. What are other transfers? We could talk about Tijjani Reijnders. Now, the recent reports that have come out, I believe it's from David Ornstein, have also said that City have made an approach to AC Milan in terms of looking at availability for Tijjani Reijnders. Those who aren't really aware, he's 27 years old, Dutch, plays as roughly like a number 8, sort of a bit of an Ilkay Gundogan sort of player as well too.
Yeah,
a lot of potential, so there's a lot of promise. I believe the talks were that it was somewhere in the region of 57 to 60 million pounds, which is sort of similar to the money that Newcastle forked out to AC Milan for Sandro Tonali. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't watch as much Serie A as I used to growing up, and that certainly not. So I'm not really going to turn around and say that I know anything about this guy. But from what you hear about people who have a bit more experience in it, they do regard this guy very, very highly as well. And, given the fact that he'd only just extended his contract, Alan, back in March to 2030, and the fact that he's going to be available for roughly around the price of 60, 70 million, I'm going to assume it's going to be a bit more than 57, because I just think 5 years of your contract is going to have to be some sort of additional fee sort of added on as well too. So it's interesting to see that one. But the more and more people talk about it, the more and more it sounds like it's meant to be like it's meant to be some good business for the club, basically. Yeah,
I'm in two minds.
He's well rated. He's well rated. Yeah. And the number 8 role is like Morgan Gibbs White is too expensive.
Alan, who's going to be? Just ask you a question about midfielders in Italy, and it's perhaps a bit unfair given how good I think Inter's players are. But who's going to be the midfielder? Who's going to be the most effective midfielder taking their team to win the title in Italy this year?
Oh, no.
Scott McTominay. McTominay, right?
Yeah.
So if Scott McTominay can go to Italy and become like the, star midfielder of the league, and he isn't far off that, I've never rated him. I've never rated him at all. So that does make me a little bit nervous. I mean, on the flip side, you can't help but think that Barella's a totally world-class midfielder who could come to any country. And we have seen players like Tonali come and start to look good. But then I see players like Scott McTominay doing well, and it makes me think, are we risking signing the Dutch Scott McTominay? Because
do you think that might also be? Do you think that it might also be that a player like Scott McTominay is now finally actually playing good because he's actually got some sort of liberty on the some sort of liberty playing football now compared to what he was?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he was a better player. Yeah, maybe he was a better player always than we thought he was. But so I don't know. I feel a lot more confident with players coming out of the Bundesliga because of the likes of Dzeko and the likes of De Bruyne. Even Mancunian.
Do you feel more confident the Bundesliga players can transition to Premier League better than say other leagues in Europe? Would you regard them as if you had to take all the major European leagues, what would be number one? What would be like 1 through 5 in terms of players who grew up in that league? Maybe not players from other countries, but players who maybe come from those leagues or have spent, say, at least 4 or 5 seasons in those leagues. Which ones do you feel personally? I mean, adjust quickest to playing in England?
Probably, if you looked at our greatest ever 11 of the last 40 years, Spain would be a big part, because obviously we've had, whether it's Aguero or Silva or Yaya, we've signed some really top talent from Spain. We've signed some real top talent from Germany, like Dzeko and De Bruyne, and players like Sané and stuff coming in and doing well. Portugal we've done well with. But, we haven't necessarily done as well with France, but France is probably the country, France has always been a league that, or a lot of players who've done really well in England have come from France. So, I mean, there's quite a few. I don't know if you could say which one's the favourite, but football-wise, I think, Germany's the most, alike for a quick transition.
Riku just said in the comments, Calvin Phillips would probably look like Lothar Matthäus in Italy or Spain. Big up Riku, our favourite Finnish blue. It's always good to see you on.
Well, I hope he's looking like Lothar Matthäus at Leeds for about 10 or 15 million. But
can we have a quick talk about that too? The Calvin Phillips. Apparently, the talk is that I think if we're willing to sell him, they'd be looking at trying to get at least 15 to 20 million for him, and probably would make more sense than any other club for him to go to Leeds. Like, I think it's safe to say that that the Calvin Phillips experiment did not work, and if we're going to be able to recoup the close to half the money that we spent for him back in 2022, I think we'd bite any club's hand off if they were willing to do that as well too.
I think we'd take 10 million. I think if it came to late in July, early August, we'd probably take 5. I think we need. He needs to move permanently.
I mean, I'm still gobsmacked that Ipswich took his 150k a week salary this season.
No, I think we just need to get that deal done. Yeah, we just need to get that deal. And good luck to the lad. I hope he goes back to Leeds, and I hope he finds some form. It
just hits the reset button, goes again, and if he can contribute to them staying up, which, let's be honest, given the way that a lot of the promoter clubs have been over the last couple of seasons, it'd actually be nice to see a promoter club stay up.
Yeah, and it's
and of course, I think we could speak for a lot of Mancunians that Leeds is one of their favourite away days as well. So yeah.
And I hope one day we find out what really happened, because it's always just been something like, what else happened behind the scenes? Because
I think we'll have to wait till he retires, really. Yeah.
He was the player that we needed. He'd been in real form. He looked good. He was coming from a manager that was perfect for Pep and had even advised him. So, and he was at a good price. So everything was favourable. And yet it's probably been one of the worst signings we've ever made. But beforehand, you could have ticked a dozen boxes that said that it was the right signing, a good price, a good deal. You know, none of the problems with so many other signings. And for whatever reason, between him and Pep, something just never. There was some massive flaw in his game that no one had ever noticed, but there was just a OCD blocker to Pep, or I don't know, or something happened. The trust was broken, and it was just broken from day one.
Do you think Bielsa might have gotten Pep's ear about him?
Oh, no doubt. I think Pep even said
it seems like
Bielsa said he'd be perfect for Pep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one with that. And we're very disappointed because Calvin Phillips, the human, I think we can all unanimously say was a great guy. It still is a great guy. But it just somewhere along the way, we just lost a potentially great player. Yeah.
He was England's player of the year in one of England's best seasons in the last 30 years. He was Leeds player of the season. It wasn't just a nice guy we tried to sign. He was someone who should have been good. But something because I thought he'd come good when he went, to Ipswich, but he hasn't impressed when I've seen it. So something is still missing from him mentally for his game. Maybe it's a total mental thing, like Dele Alli or someone, where Dele Alli looked one of the most promising footballers in the country, and has had some trials and tribulations. I see he got sent off in his first game back for his new club, and Kyle Walker, playing for Milan, even begged the referee not to send him off. Which shows, when an opponent's doing that for you, it shows
I see Kyle Walker's coming back as well. Kyle Walker's been released as well at the end of the season in Italy.
Is he really going to come back, though? Do you really see him coming back?
Well, he's got 1 year. What is it? 1 year left on his contract.
He's just hoping that Chris Wilder is celebrating next weekend.
Yeah,
because I've always thought that's where he wants to be, but there's no way that can happen if they're not a Premier League team.
Yeah,
I think the salary is a big thing for them as well too.
Captain and centre back. I think he'll take a pay cut to go there. Captain and centre back, unless a really big offer comes in from someone else, which should surprise me at his age now.
It just makes sense. Like there's a bit of sentimentality to it, which we try to avoid around here. But there are some that it's justified, and I have absolutely no problems if he does. And we'll also say all the best to Sheffield United, and also all the best to Sunderland in the playoff next weekend as well too. So I'm curious to see who goes up, because I think whichever two of them go up, it's still two very, very, very respectable clubs. Yeah. One of those, both very respectable clubs, are going to be in the Premier League.
I don't want to see Chris Wilder football in the Premier League. I'd like to see Sunderland go up. I like the dart. I like the dart.
Alan wants to, because he wants to see another Tyneside derby again. He's missed his Tyneside derbies for a few years now.
It's an underrated derby, the Tyneside derby. I like it, and that's the sort of game. I don't watch huge amounts of Premier League football apart from City, but I'll watch the Tyneside derby, and that would be nice for me to see Sunderland back up. Proper club, proper team.
Yeah. Can I quickly talk about just a couple of other things too? I'm just going to lean towards more outgoings at the moment here too, because before we came on, I did see there was an article that came out about for those of you who remember Maximo Perrone, who was a part of our treble squad, weirdly enough. Just made a couple of small cameo appearances in some dead rubber matches, but was enough, I think, to get a couple of winners' medals. But he's been on loan for at least the last season, maybe 2 seasons at Como in the Serie A. Now, according to reports, it looks as though City are about to finalise a deal with Como where they're going to be purchasing him for £25 million, which, looking at it, given the fact that, I think we only bought this guy from Sarsfield, I think, over in Argentina for about €8 million. I mean, good business. And when you think about a player who probably just wasn't good enough to cut it at the squad, and we're going to make a really, really handsome return on him. Wanted to see, just quickly get your thoughts on that. I mean, it's very, very good money, but I think we also should lean in a little bit towards, I think we're going to be seeing a bit more, money in the coffers as well too. Because again, you got to look at our under 23s and our under 18s doing so well in the league as well too. I think this factory of academy players is going to come through, and they're probably going to see another few tens or even maybe 100 million worth of outgoings coming through to help bring, you know, the next superstar in for us, basically. So just
I hope we do keep the right. I hope we do keep the right next superstars, because I'd rather not have another. I'm not saying I didn't think it was the right deal at the time. It probably was, but I don't want another Cole Palmer or Morgan Rogers, playing against us and looking better than our team. So I hope we keep the right players, and I hope Pep's learnt a little bit of a lesson this year where he could have played Nick O'Reilly earlier in the season, giving him a bit more of a chance. And I think also, perhaps even played one of the kids at centre back, because I think, quite obviously the biggest issue this season.
Well, funny you mentioned that, because I think you're referring to Jamal Simpson-Buzzi, who, by the way, just won the PL2 Player of the Season as well.
Yeah,
I think the first, it's only the second in the history of under 23s Premier League to win the Player of the Season from a defender's position as well too. So, First of all, big congratulations for that too. But I mean, you look at something like that sort of accolade, and the fact that you were basically the head of the defense that won another under 23s league title. That's looking at possible another 20 million into the coffers if we were to sell him on to somewhere in the UK.
I think all four of our centre backs were played multiple times when they shouldn't have played this season. I think playing Stones 3 times in a week cost us Stones for 4 months at the most important part of the season. I think Diaz got injured from playing when he shouldn't have done. Ake, I hope Ake's the damage isn't permanent, because I think Ake again was brought back time after time when he wasn't ready. It was clear he wasn't ready, and it was clear that whilst Akanji's injuries didn't manifest as badly as certainly Stones or Ake, Akanji was playing needled up.
Play something, Rich. Can I say something? Playing some of these players that were injured and they were being forced to play, we've created our own mess instead of trusting some of the young players like Nick O'Reilly, like the young lads at defence. Now, I'm sorry, Matt, I know you're going kicking off about a few of them, but he should have trusted them. He should have. He couldn't do anything worse.
Even if he didn't trust them, had he played them, he would have had his good defenders he trusts available for a lot more games. So by not trusting them, he actually left us far more exposed. And I think that's a big lesson. You can't. At the end of the day, it's a bit. For me, I've often looked at Liverpool over the last 15 years, and I've thought they ruined Fowler, they ruined Torres. In a way, they ruined Owen, because they had these great players, and they were great players, and they kept bringing them back weeks before they were ready to play. And Fowler got broken by Liverpool.
Arsenal are doing it now with Arteta.
Torres got broken by Liverpool. Owen got broken by Liverpool because they never let them recover. And I've thought for the last 5 or 6 years that City never did that. We let players get fully fit and brought them back. We never did it. And then this year we went full scouse, and we played players time and time again who shouldn't have played. And that has, I hope it hasn't permanently damaged a career, because I fear about whether Ake, and Stones for me is still on his day the best defender in world football. I fear how much damage has been done to them this season by being played when they shouldn't have been being played.
Correct, Rich. And Martin, shut up.
I'm not even reading.
Don't read it, because you're just kicking off.
Yep. Martin's just invading the chat. So, he's always got his contributions as well. Yeah. What other transfer news have we heard as well? Guys, what else are you possibly looking at?
The end of the day, Pat, the end of the day, I will say this. We have to trust in the sporting directors, 2 of them. to do, and Caldoon and the people that decide who they're going to go for, the scouts, and just trust them that they try and get the right people in. And papers can write all the bullshit they want, because they do write lots of bullshit, because they're trying to sell papers, and we just have to wait and trust them, and hopefully it will happen.
I think a lot of it has to do with obviously us sort of, not necessarily putting like an embargo, but basically we don't leak a lot of information to the media that much either. So I think, to be honest, the fact that we're getting so much news about Wirtz at the moment is actually a bit surprising and a bit refreshing, to be honest, as well. But I could see why we probably keep a bit quiet about a lot of our activity, maybe this summer as well too. So it remains to be seen.
Come on, guys, smash the like button, please.
Yeah, give us a like. Come on, we've got to get up to 115. I don't know if we're already there yet, but
please push that button.
Yeah. Oh dear, oh dear. Thoughts on the cup final? I know we're going to talk about it on Thursday night chat, but I won't be here, everybody. But I just thought we might quickly just get a little bit of, as the weekend create a little bit of nerves for you in regards to it, or because I've got to say, Palace and Eze are some decent little form at the moment. That's for sure.
He's a good player, isn't he? Let's be honest. He's quality.
He's a bit inconsistent with his form, though.
Player,
I said this on a previous show the other day, Alan. He is a little bit inconsistent, and it was weird because there were times there when he was partnered up with Michael Elise last season. He looked unbelievable, but then he showed glimpses of it this season. But then just when you think he looks like he's going to be like, oh, this guy could be the future Bernardo replacement, he just goes off. He just goes off the boil for weeks on end.
Well, I'll tell you something. If we play like we did at the weekend, we'll get beat.
Yeah. Cade says that he goes, I'm surprised Eze's still at Palace. We said this before. It's like, we said, like, if he was that good, do you think he would still be at Palace after all these years?
Yeah, no, he's 27. He should be, in the absolute prime of his career.
He's under a transfer request, and he wants to leave.
I'm just not. I don't see him playing at a top club. Personally, I think Elise was always the miles better player of the two of them. He's someone I'd like at City, Elise. I know he was at City for about 12 months, but he's someone I'd like back at City.
It's something funny.
Long may continue.
Yeah.
Long may
but continue. No, I'm reasonably confident about the weekend. I don't think Pep will make the same mistake again. I
do feel like we'll definitely right our wrongs.
Big time experience will come into play, and for the good of football, we have to beat Palace. I mean, Palace are what gave the world bloody Ferguson. So, for anyone thinking about wanting Palace to win, every one of those Fergie time moments, every one of those, United title winning teams, that was down to Palace, and they have to take responsibility. So I think we should publicly batter them for what they inflicted on football. And
I know Palace did have a few of our ex-soccer. I think Popovich was there, Craig Foster. But by the way, a few of the Palace fans that I know from over here, they did a vote, I think, a few years back about who they thought their worst ever player was to play for Crystal Palace, and apparently unanimously through the group, Craig Foster was the winner of that. It had been as the worst ever player in Palace's history, which kind of makes sense because, let's be honest, it's on Stan Sport, which is our broadcaster over here in Australia. He's one of the worst bloody panelists as well too. He's an absolute
tool.
I've got to be honest though, Alan. When he used to do the old world game with Les Murray, he was very, very good. But that was because he had Les Murray next to him, who was just an absolute gentleman, an absolute elder statesman of the game too. Who, by the way, everybody knows out there, our good friend Simon Hill, the voice of Australian football as well. He was also a member of that show as well too. And we do hope in the coming weeks that we're going to get him on as well. So keep an eye out for that as well. We'll also certainly.
Yeah, he had they say, in life, timing is everything. And for Simon to move to Australia, when he did, it would have been, I guess, late 2002 when he started working for SBS. what everyone must remember is in 2005, out of nowhere, Channel 9 fell out with Cricket Australia because they wanted to put some of their soap operas and shows on. And Cricket Australia said, if you've got the Ashes, you've got to show them live all the way through. So SBS, this kind of niche channel that had only ever had a little bit of football on, got the 2005 Ashes. Now, for anyone who likes cricket, 2005 Ashes, certainly from an England point of view, but even from an Aussie neutral point of view, one of the greatest test series.
Still disappointed about the result, but you take a step back, it was the greatest test series ever.
Phenomenal test series.
And
Simon,
weirdly, you say that too. 2001, Australia and India in 2001, even though we lost that series, that was one of the greats as well. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, and basically, so he's at SBS, and they come in and go, whoopsie daisy, we've got the cricket, and we've only got football commentators, most of whom are from, Croatian heritage or Serb heritage or something else. And so Simon was the only one who was working there, I think, who'd ever done cricket commentary, because he'd worked with Blowers and a few, Christopher Martin Jenkins and stuff a bit. So he got the gig, and then the best ever Ashes series in history comes, and I think it broke all SBS's ratings records and everything else.
Yeah,
and then what was it? A year after that, the Football World Cup in Germany, I think was that 2006, I think it was, when by far the best football era in Australia's history. So he'd come over from England, and he walked into two of the greatest modern TV sporting events Australia's, been part of, and, phenomenal. But I guess timing's everything. If you came 5 years later, missed it. So no, but no, that was, and it was great watching the cricket on SBS, because
it was funny because when I
so unprepared.
When I just emigrated in 2007, I think it was the year after, got obviously Foxtel, the Manchester Derby was on, and he was presenting, not commentating, obviously, the game, and he had his City scarf on. He had his City scarf on, and I'm like, "Oh, who's this guy?" And it was Simon Hill.
Yeah.
And,
because that was when it was hosted by Bozza and Robbie Slater, wasn't it? Yeah.
Spencer Pryor was on, and it was brilliant because I thought City scarf, and he's a proper geezer. I thought brilliant, a City fan. So he's a good guy, Simon Hill, as well. Really good guy.
Yeah. Mm.
So we'll try and get him on one of the shows.
He's been to plenty of our events here in Sydney, and he's a top lad. Yeah, but
he's a good bloke.
Yeah. Oh, good. Any other news you want to talk about, guys? I know some of the guys in the chat were just quickly talking about Livramento from Newcastle, but I think we can quash those stories before they even exist, to be honest. I just can't see the way Newcastle are moving now that they want a trophy. I just don't think they want to do business with probably the most direct competitor. What's probably going to be the most direct competitor for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. Why would we want to sign someone whose end product makes Jeremy Doku like Kevin De Bruyne, though? I mean... Has Livramento ever assisted or put in even nearly I mean, to me, Livramento is a bit like, remember a player we signed years ago? I think his name was Aliou Toure. Really, really fast. But pretty much, I don't think he played more than a couple of times, probably off the bench, but he's a sort of player who'd get, Oxford used to have a player like this, Chrissy Allen.
To be honest, Richard, you could say Raheem Sterling was like that in his first two seasons.
Well, no, Raheem Sterling rarely ran out of pitch. Like, Livramento is the sort of player who's going to crash into the advertising boards because he's forgotten where the line is. So, I think Camby has to stick with him, and a second fullback, I think, like Nori. I rate him. I think he's looked good, and I think Wolves this season have kind of almost taken the mantle of Brighton for the way they've acquired players, because there was I was watching, was it in the Copa America? No, not what was the international football tournament in South America? Was it Copa America last summer? When at one point there were 3 Wolves pairs on the pitch for Brazil.
Yeah.
How do Wolves get 3 Brazilian internationals?
Actually, talking about Brazil, what do you make of Ancelotti going to the national team? I mean, it's it's a huge coup in terms of, you know, the foundations of Brazilian football, because it's the first time they've ever employed a manager for the Seleção, for the national team, that hasn't been Brazilian. So it just shows that I think it's also, I'm not saying that they're panicking, but I also say, like, it's good to see that maybe things aren't working keeping it in-house, because it hasn't for, you know, nearly 25 years now.
Do you know what? It may work, because when I think of, you know, when I think of Ancelotti, I think of him a bit like I think Zinedine Zidane. I don't know that, and even maybe Deschamps. I'm not sure if I see a real coaching week in, week out. That's why, you know, even though I've always thought Pep might be England manager, I'm not sure Pep's remotely suited for international management.
Well, at least not
really
now.
tactical,
at least not now.
And the real tactical managers, I'm not sure they really are. But Ancelotti's not a really tactical manager. He's not a real get people playing in a certain way. He's more a get the most out of the personalities, and maybe that's what Brazil need.
You mean he's not me?
It's underachieved for years and years, Brazil. You know, they haven't got out of their players what they should. So maybe Ancelotti is someone who can get them to come together as a team, play to the best of their individual ability, and maybe that's what they need.
Yeah, it's a good shout. It's just a shame that Brazilian football's that way, because we you know, the football was defined by, as they call it, jogo bonito over there, which is basically translated in English as like the beautiful game. But that's what they were known for. That's what we wanted. We wanted the flair. We wanted the opportunity of every game they played having several highlight reels in it. It's not
Ancelotti. Ancelotti's not the beautiful game. You know, he's the pragmatic game. He's, you know, disciple of Sarchi, pragmatic, sensible football. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see how it goes. But you know, I think they do need to try something differently, because they've been, you know, they're like the Manchester United of international football.
Do you know what they need, Rich? They need a bit of mind in football. They need some tactical nouns.
Yeah, but I think that's hard in international football.
No, it's not. Anyway, I've only jumped on for the last few minutes, so I can end it all for you. But good day, everyone. How's everyone doing?
All right. Was that your attempt at an Aussie accent again?
Yeah, sort of. By the way, Rich, congratulations on no squeaky chair.
I think he's just been hitting the mute button every time he twitches.
I know. Well, he's not even talking to me now. Just blanking me.
No, I'm squeaking.
He's been tactical, yeah.
By the way, Rich, it's Pep who loves Libermento. I am a bit like you. He's not really the type of flowing fullback that gets bombed forward, spams balls.
Well, when we had Baz and Ian on, they didn't even give him a second thought in terms of rating him. And then I went and started watching a little bit of him for the next couple of weeks. I'm like, yeah, they're right. Didn't blow me away. Like, he certainly wasn't this spectacular, explosive left-sided player.
You know, the one thing I will say for him is I think he's underrated as a defender, and he's got pace. So if you are atoning for the fact of what Kyle Walker offered us, that real athleticism to stop breaks and stuff, maybe he could be turned into that kind of player. And maybe, you know, so maybe that could be a really valuable thing we don't have at the moment. I just don't see him being this attacking fullback who can really add to our game going forward.
Would you have Frimpong? Because obviously it looks like, by the way, I'm saying you want Frimpong, but it looks like he's all wrapped up to Liverpool, it looks like.
Don't we get a sell-on fee for him as well? We get some sort of sell-on too.
I don't know. But the way Liverpool are moving, they're going to have the best fullback pairing in the bloody league.
Oh, with
Frimpong on the right, Kirkes on the left.
We do need fullbacks because we haven't got any.
Well, the four on the list are Livramento, Wesley, Cambiasso, and the only one I'm not sure on, I don't know where this other guy's come from. What's it called? Begins with S, the other Juve one.
Oh, no. Savona.
Yeah, I don't know where. I'm not sure if that's a smoke screen. Somebody else.
I thought the Cambiasso would have been agreed.
That's what they've said. But as you see, Alan, transfers can always change until they've signed. They've not signed.
Yeah, done. Exactly. Yep. We just have to wait and see what happens, mate. Well, that's all we do.
Andrew's in the chat using the percentages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you look at Frimpong has been almost like a more like-for-like replacement for Trent. Yeah, again, you're talking about a wing-back who is better known for attack than he is defence. So to me, they've looked at it and said, like, well, what's the closest almost like-for-like that we can go from Trent leaving to Frimpong? I don't know how good Frimpong is.
You mean finding a full-back who can't defend? Yeah,
that's what I mean.
Well, that's what I'm about to say. Frimpong can't really defend. So
and maybe that's part of the Livramento thinking, because I actually think he can defend and he has pace. So, yeah, he is, a bit more to me like a
Alan won't like him.
Why?
Because he's not out there in the EDS. You don't like anyone not in the EDS show.
I like everyone from the EDS, mate, because they're our boys.
I'm so glad you thought about that comment when you said that.
Nice to see you thinking for a change, Alan. It's always refreshing.
Yeah. His thinking cap came on before he said something like that where he gets clipped. But no, yeah, I think we're in for I think we're going to get the rebuild we want. I think it's in motion.
Well, we have to wait to see if we can get them. That's the thing.
Well, do you feel like it's setting up for the day the window opens? We're just going to go hell for leather and try and get as many through the door as quickly as we can.
Yeah, I don't think if Wirtz happens, and I'm still saying if, I don't think that happens until UCL qualification is done.
Yeah,
correct.
And I just think that might drag on. Wirtz might even drag on into the start of the season. I really.
Well, I do, mate. If that drags on to the start of the season, we need to sign somebody else
because it's such a big transfer.
Martin, I don't want to go through that bullshit. If he doesn't come in the first window, get somebody else.
No, but
I think what Martin's saying is that it will happen, but it'll take a long time just to dot the I's and cross the T's.
We've got fucking mate.
Yeah,
I'm not fucking about like we did with what's it called, and ended up with nobody. Fuck off, no way, not doing that.
What, Jeff Thomas?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, wrap it up, Daddy.
Yeah, let's do this, guys. Big up to everybody. Yeah, I know. It's like you just wait for the news to come out, and then it's sort of like, yeah, we just take a little pinch of salt because it's good to talk about, but you don't want to go into too much detail because we're not all about hype here. We're all about keeping an even keel here. What are you waffling on about, Alan?
Ronnie Barker.
Yeah. Well, besides your local street corner yelling at pigeons, where else can they find you, Alan?
In the Imperial on the weekend for the cup final.
Yeah.
So please
corner of Spring and Burke Street in Melbourne CBD. So you know where to avoid. So yeah.
Yeah.
Rich, where can they find you?
Having a nap or working. Yeah.
He's still jet lagged.
I'm not coming out with any Twitter handles or any nonsense like that.
Yeah. They'll just find you back here in 36 hours anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So big up to everybody. Thursday night chat will be back. I believe it's 9:15 Thursday night, I believe, Martin.
Well, whenever Rich tells me, 9:15, 9:30.
9:15, good timing.
Yep.
There you go.
In the middle anyway. Yep, to anybody, all the regulars, always great to see you, of course. I will be getting more involved with publishing comments with this show as well, too. We're just in a transition of getting things handed over where I can start to pull the reins a little bit, have a bit more of the keys to the kingdom and things like that. So, yeah, looking forward to continuing doing the show. I do intend to be doing this a bit more during the off season as well because, we want to keep bringing content to you guys. We want to keep talking and just having a good old chat. You know, like I was laughing my head off in there. People were talking about Australia's greatest sportsman was Ray Gun from the Paris Olympics, which I think is hilarious that people still remember that. But look, yeah, we'll wrap it up anyway. It's always a pleasure to have everybody.
Stephen Bradbury.
Yes.
Easily.
Bradbury. If anybody doesn't know about it, Stephen Bradbury, 2002 Olympics, Salt Lake City. Watch his gold medal race, and you'll see why it's the greatest Australian sporting event of all, greatest Australian sporting moment of all time. Because the manner in which he wins it is the most Australian way ever.
Yeah,
it is the greatest moment in Australia.
Well, did he cheat?
Watch it next time I'm back.
Did he cheat?
No.
Alan, as an
sorry,
Alan,
you haven't seen it.
This.
How the
Stephen
fuck
Bradbury
did you get two
Olympic
passports?
Gold.
How the hell are you an Australian citizen if you don't know about Bradbury's gold?
It's so good.
Oh, it's the greatest ever. But do you know the best way to watch it is, Rich, is with Roy and HG's commentary.
Yeah.
It is the best. It's absolutely unbelievable. If I get a chance, I've
come on so you can end it, and you waffled on for another 20 minutes.
Deal with it. It's my show, isn't it? Oh, it's your show, the chat, but we'll share it.
Right,
anyway, guys, look.
Can I go to bed now?
No, in that case, we'll keep waffling.
20 to 11. I want to go to bed.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's leave it at that anyway, guys. Again, as I said, Thursday night chat, 9:15 p.m. We'll look forward to seeing you there. We'll organise a post-match for the FA Cup final as well, probably at the end of the weekend or Monday. I'm going to be away for a few days, but I'll see you back here for Blues Down Under next Wednesday. Let's leave it at that. Big up to everybody. Always a pleasure. Hope to see you again soon. Always and forever up the Blues. Take care. And it's Wirtz or bust. Bye.
See you all tomorrow.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.